Welcome to NarrativeNook Audiotales, where enchanted stories come to life. If you enjoy our stories, please subscribe, like and share to support our channel. Enjoy listening. She felt like she'd been struck by lightning, unable to believe that her idol, the Queen Abby she'd worshipped and desperately wanted to meet, had been by her side all along. Arabella watched her with amusement. Hadn't she claimed to have seen it all to be able to handle any surprise? Well, it didn't look like she'd quite recovered from this one yet. Molly was stunned. She thought back to the sketches she'd given Arabella. With just a few strokes, Arabella had always managed to transform them into something even better. She had noticed that Arabella's design style was similar to Queen Abby's, a daring, unique expression. She had even asked Arabella in a whisper whether Queen Abby was a man or a woman and if she was old. Back then, Arabella had told her that Queen Abby was a woman and that she wasn't old. She had even asked Arabella if she'd ever met Queen Abby. In retrospect, she felt pretty dumb for not realizing that the famous master was right in front of her. If it hadn't been for Arabella, her life would have been completely different. She had wanted Queen Abby's autograph, but as a small-time designer, she'd had no chance of meeting her. Arabella had encouraged her to enter the competition. She remembered how the contest required an assistant, but she had no reputation or confidence, and her colleagues didn't want to be her assistant because they knew their own abilities. As designers, they didn't want to embarrass themselves at a design contest. Arabella had offered to go with her, giving her the courage and confidence to submit her application at the last minute. Arabella had been a great help on her journey as a designer, not only helping her revise sketches and giving her advice but also clearing her name. She remembered once, when her work was slandered as plagiarism, Arabella had saved the day by quickly altering the design. Arabella had given her the chance to show in a live stream how she had come up with the 23 styles, boosting her reputation. The live stream had reached 1.29 million views. She had taken Arabella's advice and shown surveillance footage in the stream of Oscar sneaking into Arabella's office to steal her design, clearing her own name, and bringing heat and orders to the company. Before the Solterra competition, Arabella had taught her many design techniques. One night, she had insisted on treating Arabella to a barbecue when Myra sent a gang to cause trouble. Arabella had been injured while protecting her but had still insisted on going to the competition the next day. Arabella's help had been countless. It was because of Arabella that she was standing here today, representing her country in an international competition. If Arabella had signed her name as Queen Abby from the start or not have helped her, her life could have been completely different. Molly's eyes welled up with tears, gratitude, and emotion filling her gaze as she looked at Arabella. Arabella smiled slightly, thinking, "You dummy, why are you crying now?" After the host read the rules, the competition started immediately. The first task was fairly simple, with the organizers providing fabric and accessories for the contestants to design a piece representing their country's style. All the techniques Arabella had taught Molly and the hundreds of videos and tutorials she'd watched recently flashed through her mind. Molly started cutting the fabric, her movements more confident than before. Arabella watched her, admiration in her eyes. Good, she had improved a lot. Hans glanced at his sister. He knew she was here to support Molly. No matter how much the organizers had tried to invite her, she had never been willing to show up as a judge. If she had shown her face earlier, he might have recognized her. And she would have suffered less and been able to go home earlier. Isn't that assistant number 16 from the Solterra Cup garment design contest? A judge suddenly recognized Arabella but wasn't sure since she was sitting as a judge under the identity of Queen Abby today. "You know, I didn't notice until you said it, but she does look a lot like that 16th assistant we had." Another judge seemed to notice this as well but couldn't quite believe it. After all, with Queen Abby's status, there's no way she'd stoop to being an assistant for a newbie. The judge said, "They probably just look alike, not the same person." At this moment, Isabella on stage noticed Arabella in the judge's seat, and her face instantly went pale. She's so young, and she's a judge. The most shocking part was the sign in front of her read, "Queen Abby." She's Queen Abby. The top designer from Solterra she's admired and idolized for so long, and has always wanted to meet, was right here. At this moment, Isabella's mind went blank. No wonder she said earlier that she had the power to decide whether Isabella stays or leaves. Turned out she really did have that power. Bella, who do you think is the most promising? Hans asked, his gaze turning to the stage where dozens of contestants worked diligently, each one looking confident, and their designs were unique. Arabella looked around and said nonchalantly, I have my money on Molly. After all, she didn't watch those hundreds of videos for nothing, and she didn't learn all those skills for naught. Molly had a deep understanding of her work and quickly completed a beautiful long dress. Time was up. All contestants needed to go backstage to put on their own clothes and then take turns showcasing them on stage. While waiting for the contestants, photos of the finished products were shown on the big screen. The clothing created by the contestants was being scored by the 10 judges and thousands of industry veterans in the audience. The variety of national clothes made one's head spin. Out of all of them, Molly's long dress stood out, quickly distinguishing itself from the rest. She used red to represent her country and made a bright, elegant long dress. The striped elements at the collar and the hidden flower designs on the dress were all Solterra features. She perfectly combined Solterra culture with modern fashion, showcasing her keen fashion sense as a designer. Arabella looked on approvingly. Not bad. There were a few areas that could be improved, but overall, it was much better than the others. Soon, Molly drew the first number and was the first to showcase her design. With her retro hairstyle, slender figure, and fitted red dress, holding an umbrella, she slowly walked out from the background of a small bridge and stream. The low-cut design emphasized her collarbone and neckline. The Solterra features stunned many in the audience. She perfectly embodied the unique elegance and grace of Solterra women, so beautiful it was hard to look away. Especially her eyes, looking into the distance, were thoughtful and clear, which attracted even more attention. The embroidered patterns on the dress added to the overall elegance and grandeur. The sleeveless design not only highlighted her figure but also made the whole outfit more elegant. Arabella quickly scored 9 points, only 1 point away from a perfect 10. The audience was surprised. Even Molly on stage was taken aback but also felt a hint of excitement. 9 points. Bella actually gave her such high praise. No, it was Queen Abby. Bella gave her such a high score from Queen Abby's perspective. Hans also scored 9 points. The audience was shocked again. This was just the first contestant, and the judges already gave such high scores. How much pressure would the following contestants be under? The other judges also scored, including 9 points, 8 points, 7 points. The lowest score was not below 7 points. The room exploded in thunderous applause. Arabella picked up the mic and began to professionally dissect why such high ratings were given, analyzing the merits of the long skirt. The other judges started chiming in, praising the design. Soon, other contestants started to take the stage. A slew of all sorts of outfits failed to stand out in the critical eyes of the judges until Isabella strutted in wearing a sweet yet badass denim ensemble. Her design was both sweet and badass, unique and cutting edge. Her design fused traditional culture with modern trends. If sold individually, it would definitely be a hot seller. However, Arabella only gave it a 6. Seeing the score, the light in Isabella's eyes dimmed. She knew this was coming. She had previously pissed off Arabella, so Arabella was getting back at her by giving her a low score. But as a judge, how could she abuse her power like this? She instantly felt a surge of indignation. Aside from Arabella, Hans scored 7, and the other judges gave 8 or 9. Overall, it was not a bad performance, but Isabella was feeling more and more hard done by. As she was the overall champion of M Country, the host asked her, after all the scores were given, "How do you feel about your current score? If I'm not mistaken, you're the second highest scored contestant after Molly." "No, I'm not happy at all," Isabella said. "I have a problem with the score Queen Abby gave me." The audience was in an uproar as soon as these words were spoken. The judges' gazes all fell on Arabella. Arabella lifted her eyes, meeting Isabella's gaze on stage. Seeing this, the host smelled big news and quickly probed, "Why? Just because Queen Abby gave you a 6? You think your work deserves a higher score?" "Isabella, yes, all the other judges acknowledged my work, only she intentionally gave me a low score. I'm sorry, did I hear you correctly? You said, intentionally. Yes, it's because I offended her backstage. Hearing this, the audience was shocked. So, there's more to the story. Even the host was stunned. You offended her. Isabella, yes, and she knows the first contestant, Molly. She gave Molly a 9 because they know each other. Arabella gave her a 9. This was an international design competition. Such a bombshell of news had the press scrambling to capture the moment, even managing to snap Arabella's reaction. Seeing the situation getting out of hand, staff from the event organizers quickly cut off the host and Isabella's mics, with some people going on stage to escort Isabella off. But Arabella's voice quickly filled the ears of everyone present. No need to cut the mic. She signaled to the backstage staff to turn their mics back on, her eyes devoid of any panic, instead radiating unbelievable confidence. For a teenager to have such courage was truly astonishing. Arabella looked at the girl on stage, asking coolly, "Don't you know where you lost?" "I don't know." Isabella's answer was full of confidence. She thought that the clothes she designed today would sell like hotcakes if they were put on the market. She didn't believe that her score was only a 6. Backstage, Molly watched the live broadcast, nervously clenching her fists. She had caused trouble for Arabella. Such a thing happened in such an important competition, and she was worried about what impact this might have on Arabella's status as a judge. She felt that she had put Arabella in a dilemma, and her heart was full of anxiety and guilt. Because her long skirt can show the unique elegance and gorgeousness of Solterra's women, and also the charm of her own country's traditional colors, while yours can't. Isabella was a little confused. Why? The clothes she designed today incorporated the cultural elements of her country and the most avant-garde design concepts. Could it not compare to Molly's long skirt? Arabella, the style that Molly designed can maintain the charm of traditional culture while being fashionable, whether it's worn by her or a middle-aged woman. In other words, her design suits anyone. That's impossible. Isabella had just seen the long skirt, and it required a very good figure to show off. If a middle-aged woman wore it, it would definitely destroy all its beauty. Isabella, Molly just did a good job with the clothing design. If you let a middle-aged woman wear her long skirt, it definitely won't get such a high score. Really? Arabella didn't think so. Then you can pick a woman on the spot, have her wear Molly's long skirt, and pick another one to wear the clothes you designed. Okay. Isabella was confident in her design, and she immediately picked 2 middle-aged women in their 40s and sent them backstage to change clothes. The audience was buzzing with discussion. Some said that Isabella was too much, openly defying the judge on such an occasion. After all, this was only the first round, and there were 2 more rounds to go. Wasn't she afraid that the judges would remember this and retaliate? Others said that if Queen Abby really scored high for her acquaintances, it would be unfair to the other contestants. Still, others suspected there might be inside information in the competition, and the judges from Solterra would definitely favor the contestants from Solterra. Soon, the 2 middle-aged women had changed their clothes. Just now, Isabella had deliberately chosen 2 foreign women to win. Still, to her surprise, the first one, Gladys, showed the sexiness and temperament of Solterra's women after putting on Molly's long skirt. Although she was already 40 years old and a bit overweight, the long skirt made her look elegant and noble, full of feminine charm. On the other hand, Julia, wearing a denim suit, looked old-fashioned instead of fashionable. The audience immediately burst into applause. The difference was obvious at a glance. Which design was better? The audience already had their answer. However, Isabella was still a bit dissatisfied. Isn't it enough if some people like my clothes? Why do they have to satisfy everyone? You asked me why Molly scored 3 points higher than you. Arabella looked her in the eye and said thoughtfully, because her design is better than yours, and the cultural heritage it reflects is deeper. Your clothes may be avant-garde, but you've used too many elements, and some of the design is redundant. Really? Queen Abby, I'll ask you right here. What kind of design is not redundant? How can I get your high score of 9? This provocative question stunned everyone present. Isabella's arrogance was intolerable. She had no respect for the judge. Everyone was on pins and needles, wondering if Arabella could handle the situation, even the hosts were keeping a close eye on her, ready to step in at any moment. The crew had their hands hovering over buttons, ready to cut Isabella's mic at any point. Just as Hans was about to speak, Arabella beat him to it. "Since you're so eager to learn, I'll give you a lesson right here and now. Show you exactly where you went wrong. Ladies, kindly go backstage, strip down, and bring your clothes up here." Everyone was left scratching their heads, trying to figure out what Arabella was up to. Young as she was, Arabella exuded an aura of authority as she took to the stage. Isabella was getting the jitters, terrified that Arabella might really take a swing at her on stage. Before stepping on stage, Arabella had someone bring a pair of scissors and other tools. Then, in full view of everyone, she cut up the denim outfit that Isabella had designed. Everyone was dumbstruck, wondering what on earth she was doing. Even Isabella couldn't believe it. Was Queen Abby really modifying her design? Her design was already chock full of the latest trends and pretty much flawless. What could Queen Abby possibly do to improve it? But behold, Arabella handed the modified design to the host just 3 minutes later. The host immediately had the previous model, Julia, change into the outfit, and the camera zoomed in on Arabella's makeover. The same denim outfit, worn by the same person, but with a different effect. Before, Julia had seemed a bit dated, but now in this outfit, she looked sweet yet edgy, with a hint of an aloof, commanding vibe. Arabella, if the outfit were in light blue and brown plaid, it'd look even better. And not just the color, you've even got the fabric wrong. Everyone's eyes were glued to their outfit on Julia. The top was a structured fit with white cutouts, simple yet trendy. The rolled-up sleeves added a relaxed, casual vibe. Paired with wide-legged pants and high heels, the look was far more sophisticated than before. Arabella, if we weren't considering national elements, a beret would really take this look up a notch. This outfit was brimming with fashion and style. Once more, the crowd erupted into applause, and Isabella finally realized where she had gone wrong. Arabella wasn't belittling her out of personal bias, as she had previously thought. Her design really did leave much room for improvement. The once confident Isabella now realized her shortcomings and fully accepted the harsh reality. As for Molly's dress, this is why I only gave it a 9. Arabella set to work on the dress, and within moments, the already stunning dress was even more breathtaking. The crowd was in awe. They hadn't known a dress could be transformed like this. Backstage, Molly was both shocked and excited to see where she had lost that 1 point. Arabella indeed was impressive. Her ratings were completely unbiased, coming from a purely professional standpoint. The applause was deafening as Arabella made her way off the stage. Everyone watched her, their eyes full of admiration and respect. Isabella bowed deeply in the direction Arabella had left, feeling somewhat guilty as she picked up the microphone. "I apologize, Queen Abby. I was ignorant and offended you. Your revision was indeed good. My failing to get a 9 was my own fault." Arabella returned to her seat, her bright eyes on Isabella. Her voice carried through the microphone to everyone's ears. "On this stage, the judges don't look at your nationality or your connections. They look at your work. You'll score high if you design something that catches the eye." She sat in the judge's seat, holding herself to professional standards, refusing to let personal vendettas affect her judgment. Arabella continued, "Just focus on the competition. There are still 2 rounds to go. Everything's still up for grabs." Arabella's magnanimity left the audience amazed, and they burst into applause. She didn't use this opportunity to disqualify Isabella, nor did she show any sign of anger. The backstage crew collectively sighed in relief. Isabella couldn't help but bow to Arabella again in gratitude. After the first round of elimination, only 9 contestants made it to the second round. The task for the second round was to design the most beautiful wedding dress for the most important person in life. This could be oneself or a loved one. They had 60 minutes. An image of a person popped into Molly's mind. This person was so beautiful that no wedding dress seemed good enough for her. As everyone else busied themselves with their designs, Molly's gaze landed on Arabella, not far away. "Bella, you handled that really well." Hans turned to Arabella, impressed by how she had grown and how easily she dealt with such a difficult situation. Arabella smiled at Hans. "No biggie." She was used to dealing with unexpected incidents like this. But why was Molly staring at her? Was she planning to design a wedding dress for her? Molly mulled it over, eventually using several silver diamonds to create a stunning wedding gown. 60 minutes flew by. 9 designers stood on the stage with their creations, waiting for the verdict. Arabella picked up the microphone, offering her comments one by one. Contestant number 9, your design isn't bad, but it would make the average person look like a curtain. It needs a really beautiful person to pull it off. Everyone took a closer look and had to agree. It did look like a curtain. Arabella continued, the flowers that contestant number 8 added to the hem of the dress make it look like a bedsheet. Again, everyone looked and had to agree. Arabella's straight-shooting comments had the audience in stitches, and they couldn't help but applaud. Only the young and beautiful can pull off this wedding dress. Arabella's comment hit the nail on the head, and no one in the room dared to disagree. Many people were nodding in agreement. Arabella continued her critique. As for the designer number 6, you've created a silver-sequined wedding dress that cleverly blends maturity and cuteness, creating a sexy yet not overly flashy look. Well done. The designer number 5 also designed a silver wedding dress, but with a bare back and high slit, making it even more daring and sexy creative. Arabella reviewed the works of 8 designers in total. At last, her eyes landed on Molly's creation. The dazzling silver diamonds outlined the body curves in a captivating way, and even from a distance, one could sense the delicate silver diamonds and the soft chiffon wrapping the body gently. Arabella critiqued, the top is a tight design, accentuating the beautiful waist and hip curves. The silver diamonds all over the body add to the charm. As you move, you seem to twinkle with delicate shimmer. This wedding dress is dignified yet elegant and exudes a sense of luxury and power. If a fair-skinned person wears this dress, they will certainly shine. If a darker-skinned woman wears it, the silver diamonds will complement their skin color, and the beautiful lines can be seen through the chiffon. Well done. Arabella revealed all the scores, grading 9 designers at once. Molly was surprised to find that the designer number 2, Isabella, got the same score as her, an 8. Isabella was also taken aback. She didn't expect such a high appraisal from Arabella in this round of competition. Arabella said, the most striking part of your embroidered wedding dress is the waist design. It gives an overall impression of being delicate yet cool, very unique. Thank you, Queen Abby. Isabella bowed repeatedly in thanks. She didn't expect Arabella to judge fairly without any prejudice. Then, it was Hans's turn to review the works of the 9 designers. Arabella quietly listened, surprised by Hans's unique insights into design. Your wedding dress is colorful. From a distance, it looks like a colorful butterfly, and it looked like layers of birds' feathers up close. Although the design is good, it can easily look too flashy if not careful. I personally suggest that a wedding dress should mainly stick to one color. After Hans finished his review and scoring, it was time for the next judge to speak. The siblings were whispering to each other during their free time. Some reporters caught their shadows chatting closely and couldn't believe Hans actually initiated a conversation with a female. And they were so close, chatting for so long. Who knew what will happen next? After all the judges had given their comments and scores, the host invited the top 3 scorers to stay and share their thoughts. Molly held the microphone and looked at Arabella sitting in the audience. There's a very important friend and mentor in my life. Because of her encouragement and help, I can stand on this stage today. Her appearance is like a light in the dark, making my world brighter bit by bit. I want to thank her particularly. This wedding dress is designed for her. It can show her beauty and a slightly cold temperament, and also show her elegance and generosity. Arabella gently watched the speaker. This wedding dress was indeed prepared for her. Arabella, thank you. Molly thanked her in front of everyone. Except for Hans, no one in the audience knew that Arabella was Queen Abby. Everyone mistakenly thought that Arabella was the excellent friend Molly mentioned. Molly looked at the girl sitting in the judge's seat, and the past events emerged in her mind individually. Back then, when the shit hit the fan, Bella bandaged up her mom's wounds. She even rented her own place to them at a bargain, and to keep them from feeling guilty, she lied that it was a friend's place. Before, Oscar was a real pain in the ass to her, blaming her for skipping work for no reason, and pointing fingers at her for plagiarism. Bella always stepped in to clear her name. Bella encouraged her to join the Solterra Cup garment design contest, acting as her right-hand man and sticking by her through every stage of the competition. Without Bella, she'd probably still be scribbling designs in some corner, leading an ordinary life with no fame or anything. "Really, thank you," Molly said sincerely. "It's so great to know you." No one knew she was thanking Queen Abby from the judging panel. They all thought she was just being grateful to a good friend. Bella's eyes softened. She thought, no need for thanks. When Molly wrapped up her thank you speech, the other two also said a few words. Soon enough, the third round kicked off. 6 models strutted onto the stage in identical dresses. The 6 competitors advancing to the third round were tasked to modify each dress into their own interpretation of beauty right there in front of the audience. There was only one rule: the dress could not be taken off. It had to be modified on the model. For Molly, this was a piece of cake. Countless designs popped up in her mind, and she quickly started to work her magic on the dress. Hans offered Bella some desserts provided by the organizers. Seeing her not eating, he even gave her some snacks he had brought, all her favorite flavors. He even had someone make Bella a cup of coffee. He said, "I brought the coffee beans. Give it a try, see if you like it." Bella didn't expect Hans to actually bring his own coffee beans. She took a sip. Rich and smooth. She nodded, "Tastes good. I have more in the car." "Take some back later," Hans said, his eyes fixed on the stage. "Sure." Bella's eyes never left the stage either. She noticed Molly's movements slowing down as if she'd hit a snag. Something seemed off with Molly. Hans had also noticed it. Even though Molly was facing away from the audience, focused on modifying the dress, her hands would occasionally stop, a little too frequently. The model standing in front of Molly noticed her discomfort and asked in a hushed voice, "Are you okay?" "I'm fine." Molly didn't know what was wrong. Her stomach was hurting more and more, but she hadn't eaten or even had a sip of water backstage. Could breakfast have upset her stomach? The model said, "You look pale." Not just her face, but even her lips were starting to lose color. "Maybe you should tell the host," the model suggested. "No need." Molly had barely made it to the third round. All her hard work would go down the drain if she quit now. She didn't mind being laughed at, but now, she represented her country. The other 2 Solterra competitors had already been eliminated. She was the last one standing for Team Solterra. Watching her grit her teeth and hang in there, the model felt sympathy. Bella could tell from the model's expression that something was off. Molly might be feeling ill, but she was still hanging in there. "Should I have a staff member go up and check?" Hans whispered to his sister. Bella replied, "No need. She's got this." This was her competition. It was up to her whether and when to stop, if she could keep going. Molly was slowing down, small beads of sweat forming on her forehead. As she was about to wrap things up, she suddenly blacked out and collapsed on stage. The audience was stunned, some standing up, staring in disbelief at Molly lying motionless on stage. "She wasn't feeling well just now," one of the models on stage yelled. Several staff members rushed to her, but Arabella beat them to it. Arabella was the first one to reach Molly, quickly checking her pulse. Within a second, her expression turned grave. "Get her to a hospital," she commanded. In her rush to leave the house, Arabella didn't bring any medical tools. She couldn't treat Molly right away, but she quickly performed some first aid to let the medication gradually take effect. 2 staff members immediately carried Molly off the stage. There were murmurs about what happened, whether Molly had any underlying conditions that caused her to faint. Arabella stood up, scanning the audience. Her voice, amplified by the microphone on her collar, reached everyone's ears. "Lock down the venue. Someone's been poisoned." The chilling announcement shocked the crowd. This was an international competition. Who would dare to poison someone openly? Molly was a contestant. The person who wanted to hurt her, could it be another contestant? Could it really be another contestant trying to sabotage Molly? All eyes turned to the stage, onto Isabella, who was the prime suspect. She immediately retorted, "What are you all looking at me for? I didn't do it, I would never." There were doubts about how Arabella could quickly conclude that Molly was poisoned. What if she just ate something bad or was simply unwell? Call the police. Arabella turned to the host. The host was flabbergasted. Call the police? Wouldn't that tarnish the reputation of the entire industry and jeopardize future competitions? Arabella retorted, if we don't call the police, will we investigate ourselves? Even if we find the culprit, who's going to believe us? Allowing a criminal to remain in this industry would be the real smear on our reputation. The host looked at the organizer, who nodded. Only then did he dare to take out his phone to call the police. Everyone, on and off the stage, stay put. Do not leave. When Arabella finished speaking, someone raised their hand, wanting to go to the washroom. Arabella curtly responded, hold it in. The venue fell silent. Arabella's presence was intimidating. Her cold demeanor gave off a vibe that upsetting her would lead to dire consequences, so everyone quieted down. Hans, one of the judges, realized the gravity of the situation. He knew what Arabella was worried about. She wanted to stay and investigate but was concerned about leaving Molly alone at the hospital. So, he signaled to Arabella that he would check on Molly. Arabella nodded, and soon, the Dawnstar police arrived. People pointed towards Arabella, who called the police. When the police approached her, asking why she was so sure Molly was poisoned, she replied, because she was poisoned with HN2C, a colorless, odorless poison recently surfaced on the market. Everyone saw that her explanation was bang on and couldn't help but wonder, how did she know? The cop asked her in Dawnstar language, seeing as this is odorless and tasteless, how did her figure out Molly got hit with HN2C? Arabella answered in fluent Dawnstar, she deduced it from Molly's pulse. She checked Molly's pulse just now, and it was exactly like what someone poisoned by HN2C would have. Generally, people struck by this poison felt intense stomach pain, so painful that they passed out. When they woke up, the pain spread to their limbs, they passed out again, and when they woke up, the pain spread all over. This process lasted for 3 days. Normal hospitals can't figure out the cause, and painkillers didn't work. This HN2C was developed by some small country, specifically for torture, so she had no idea how it ended up on the streets. This poison can't be ingested, and it can only seep into the skin through contact and then release its toxicity. The people of that country would let this poison touch the skin of criminals during interrogations. After a while, the criminal would be rolling on the ground from unbearable pain. Each time they pass out and wake up, the pain intensifies until they can't take it anymore and confess. The cop understood, so contestant number 1 must have come into contact with something to be poisoned. Some people in the crowd turned pale after hearing what Arabella said. This type of poison didn't exist in Solterra, and Queen Abby was a Solterra designer. How could she possibly know so much? Arabella noticed someone had been watching her, but when she turned around, she couldn't find the person. The cops quickly started their investigation, and the atmosphere became extremely tense. Arabella was sitting at the judges' table. The other judges wanted to ask her some questions, but her cold aura scared them off, and in the end, none of them dared to ask. This girl's aura was too strong, and it made people feel uneasy. Arabella thought of something, took out her phone, and messaged Hans, telling him Molly was hit with HN2C, that it required a cocktail of dozen-plus drugs for treatment. She even made a list of medications, instructing the hospital to follow this method to save her. Actually, the best method was bleeding at several points, and it's the quickest and most effective method. But this was Dawnstar. The doctors here didn't know acupuncture or bleeding, so Arabella could only do what she could. She didn't know that this method was later kept by the hospital and saved several patients with the same symptoms. But that's a story for another time. After a while, another cop came to consult Arabella in a low voice, asking her how to find which items contained HN2C. Arabella had them prepare a few things, mix them together, and spray them on the item's surfaces. If the item changed color, it meant it contained HN2C. People were gobsmacked, and they didn't expect a designer to know so much. The cops quickly followed her advice. Not long after, a cop yelled, meaning he found HN2C on the silver diamond. Molly must have used the silver diamond while making the wedding dress, and her hand came into direct contact with HN2C. That's why she got poisoned. I remember. Just then, Isabella on the stage suddenly spoke up. Before the competition started, I saw Penny challenging Molly backstage. Don't talk nonsense. Penny was clearly nervous. I don't know her. We're just competitors challenging each other, just trying to gauge each other's abilities, that's all. The cops didn't care for Penny's excuses, and they immediately started checking the security footage. They found that before the second round started, everyone was preparing to go on stage. Only Penny passed the box full of silver diamonds. Thank you for listening. If you have enjoyed this story, please like and share so others can see it too. Also hit the subscription button and notification bell so you can be notified on our next release. Thank you for your support. God bless you.